These are the men and women of Beaver Valley, the bravest of the brave. They fought fearlessly for their country, their city, their community, and for the ideals we share as Americans. They served proudly in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Here now are their stories, their own experiences in their own words, the words of the heroes of Beaver Valley.
As far as I know, there was 10 children in the family. Bert was a stepbrother to my mother. My first grandfather died at the age of 40, and then my grandmother remarried, and then Walter was from the second marriage. I remember him coming to our farm when I was a young kid and playing with us. We lived on a farm. We used to have these big hay piles, and he'd throw us up on top of them hay piles and have a lot of fun with us. I remember he was a real fun guy. Other than that, you know, that's the last I pretty much knew of him.
When Walter Bert Mintus joined the U.S. Navy, he became a radioman for Squadron VT-51. It was based on the USS San Jacinto. Also on the ship was George H.W. Bush, future President of the United States. Their mission in the summer of 1944 was to fly into combat against Japanese forces in the South Pacific. On July 27th of that year, Walter Mintus, along with pilot Lieutenant Roland Howell and gunner Otis Ingram, set out on a mission to Palau. Their plane was shot down. All 3 men were labeled missing in action.
From what I know, reading, is that when his plane went down, another Japanese plane followed them down. And in the papers that was written come from the Department of the Navy, there was 3 people on the plane. And they seen one person was standing on top of the plane with his parachute on, but they don't know who it was. So when the Japanese came, they don't know whether they captured him or if they killed him on the spot. They never found that out because they didn't know who it was on top of the plane with their parachute on. They knew one person was still living. They didn't know who it was. They had to declare all 3 people on that plane missing. Uncle Bert, somehow back then, he made a recording and sent to my grandmother. When, you know, we went down, when we heard he was missing, my mother and dad, you know, took all the kids and we went down there, and I remember them playing this record. And of course, a lot of crying, and it was very emotional. During the holidays and that, it would be mentioned, but there wasn't a lot of talk about it because of the sorrow that went with it.
74 years after his disappearance, the Department of the Navy received remains. Rick Kozak and his niece are submitting DNA in hopes that the remains are that of Walter Mintus.
My niece, who lives in Houston, Texas, she got a call from a genealogist, and she happened to see the name Mintus and Kozak, and we were related. So she got a hold of my niece and wanted to know if we knew Uncle Bert, and if she ever heard of him, and she said, yeah. They have some remains that could be him. So they wanted to know if she would do a DNA test, and they needed 2 people from the same bloodline to do a DNA test, and she recommended me. So they must suspect it's going to be some of the people who went down that plane. I can remember where every once in a while somebody say, I wonder if he's captured or if he's dead, you know. It was always that question mark there when his name would be brought up, you know. So if they captured him, that would be closure for us to know that.